Just ignore the background noise for now. I'm going to pull up my browser because this is honestly the best way I've been able to interact with other people's comments, I should say, for whenever they do happen to join my streams. I do happen to have some personal thoughts and opinions on the matter of the OGL and everything. And we'll get into it here in a minute. By the way, I know my hair is scraggly. I know my facial hair is abhorrent. Me and some coworkers are growing our stuff out for charity. So, um, I'm going to personally donate my hair, and like the whole thing with the facial hair is uh like how do they word it? Awareness, I suppose. So we're doing that. Um, Let me go to YouTube. Just go to the YouTube. So I understand it's 3 in the morning. Many, at least it currently is here at the time of this video. So there's probably not going to be a lot of people on. Probably not going to be a lot of people. Um, Probably not going to be a lot of people interacting. But we're. I'm going to. I'm going to do my best. By the way, I hit 99 subscribers. To everybody who has subscribed to my channel and watched my videos, I thank you. Um, so we are going to bring up. So obviously, the question on everybody's mind so far has been, uh, what? Excuse me, indigestion. What comes next from the hobby, right? So I think that's the question on everybody's mind. We have seen different creators respond differently. I watched Matt Finch um, last night, I believe. Um, is when he streamed talking about it. Here's the thing: a lot of people fail to remember, especially for those who haven't been in the hobby long. Which I'm going to say myself included. I've only been in the hobby for a couple years, but this has a little bit of precedence. Um, the whole I made a comment on Twitter saying I found it almost ironic that the the same kids who called some of us alt right Nazis um for preferring OSR systems over modern systems are now championing well, and wanting to fight for the OGL, which existed primarily as a way to uh, play the older editions and the older modules and stuff like that without hindrance from Wizards because it existed for the older systems for the guys who did not want to play third edition. That's why it existed. And because, in my opinion, I believe because Lorraine Williams, one of her biggest flops was her idea of cracking down on third party content. Something that, okay, I don't know personally because I wasn't alive, but something that a lot of people, I've been hearing a lot of the old grognards, which again, I'd say out of respect, a bunch of them old grognards talk about is the fact that this hobby gets by on third party and always has gotten by on third party contributions, and that's true. If I'm not mistaken, the thief class was a third party contribution. Let me take a look at that. I do know it appears in it first made its official appearance in Greyhawk. But and of course all the stinking web results that bring up. You want to talk about 5e, and I couldn't give a rip about 5e. I don't care about 5e. Don't. Let me narrow down my search. So, okay, well, that's fine. It'll appear here. Wikipedia is just as good. So, yeah, I was right. Supplement one, Greyhawk. Creative origins. The abilities of the thief class were drawn from various archetypes. Da, da, da. Okay, D&D fan Gary Switzer. If I butcher that name, I apologize. But Gary Switzer shared the idea for a thief class with Gary Gygax over the phone. Development was done in Switzer's role playing group, primarily by D. Daniel Wagner, one of the writers of the Manual of Arania, the first non TSR D&D supplement. Thief was first published in the Game Player's Newsletter, number 9, June 1974. Thief class was then included in the original 1975 Greyhawk supplement. They had four-sided hit dice under the new combat system introduced in that system. So we have a precedence first and foremost for what a lot of people consider a core class, making its first appearance not in an official TSR publication, but in a fanzine. It was first published in the Game Player's Newsletter, and that's an important point because a lot of people fail to realize that OD&D included fighter, cleric, and magic user because it was still based on chainmail, still based on group fighting. Fighter was obviously your melee character. Wizards were still about control and auxiliary effects and artillery strikes, essentially. And clerics made a good middle ground. After all, the fighter rolled a higher dice than the wizard for hit points, the magic user for hit points, but the cleric rolled a six-sided and was a nice in between. And so here comes the thief, a creation of Gary Switzer, a D&D fan. So third-party contribution. So we have this precedence um, of outside materials being published in uh, in a magazine and then eventually finding its way to the core game, eventually first appearing officially in Greyhawk. So something that when's the last time you've ever heard of that happening? Because Wizards never does that. The only time they do that, they certainly don't take it from an average Joe. They take it from either some kind of pop culture thing that's tied to nerd culture, like Critical Role, or they read about it, they come up with it, and then like people decide they hate how it works, and then they have to fix it. So the thing about this is we have a precedence, right? We truly do of this kind of thing happening before, because the whole thing about TSR to begin with, the whole thing about TSR to begin with was when they brought Lorraine Williams in. She really wanted to crack down on third party stuff being published. Now, opinions are kind of skewed on whether or not TSR personnel were allowed to play test, but the whether or not it was allowed, what is generally agreed upon is that nobody play tested anything during her time as CEO. And another thing that is really funny. Okay, let me look her up real quick because it's very important. So is that after a while, okay, because the whole thing is she didn't play Dungeons and Dragons, which is totally fine. I believe that you could still own a Dungeons and Dragons IP and have never played the game. But her brother, um, if I'm not mistaken, is what who recommended her. Yep, yep, Flint Dill, who was a a collaborator in choose your own adventure style novels and games. Um, so let's see. I remember something specifically about GI Joe. Well, anyway, let's just get back to the point. Anyway, so she's in charge. Um, so the thing about it is that um, I tried uh, tried to have the sale of stock declared illegal in court for TSR. And when the judge ruled against him, yeah, he sold his remaining stock and he left. When he left, he tried to start his own company and his own role playing game called Dangerous Journeys, and in which Lorraine Williams sued him. And because, it said in big bold letters, Gary Gygax, and uh, which it was Lorraine Williams representing TSR that sued him. So Gary Gygax coming up with this new system, and originally the initials were D and D. It started off as what was the original name? Dangerous Dimensions. That was originally what it was called. So anyway, under Williams's direction, TSR initially maintained its leadership position in role-playing games and solidified its expansion into other fields such as magazines, paperback fiction, and comic books, which you definitely see a lot of during the mid '80s, right? So you have this whole thing with um, Gary was paying attention to the cartoon a lot. You have Forgotten Realms is not beginning yet, but it's getting ready to start, and you have writers like R.A. Salvatore taking up the helm. Then of course you have uh, Tracy Hickman and Margaret Weiss writing Dragonlance, and so like you have this commercialization within its own thing, so to speak. But something that for whatever reason, Williams had personal rights on the Buck Rogers license, and she tried to push Buck Rogers products through TSR because she didn't give a slightest rip about D&D really. And she didn't seem to realize that the players for TSR did not give a rip. Now here's the thing: anytime criticism of Lorraine Williams is brought up, it's usually brushed off by the most of the people in not only media but in the hobby as istophobic, misogyny, and fatphobic and stuff like that. But ignore the fact that she ran TSR into the ground. She ran it like crap. She literally inherited one of the hottest businesses, especially the hottest business in game at the time, in games altogether, to the point where it was almost a monopoly, and she crashed it. And really, where it started, and it was because of Buck Rogers. Nobody cared about Buck Rogers in 1989. Why would anybody care? But she cared because she had personal gain to have from it. Finally, what did it end was the Dragon Dice, which was their answer to try to capitalize on the Magic the Gathering craze, which was taking place during the early 90s. So she ended up selling uh, in auction Buck Rogers collections, collectible stuff. Um, let's see here. Buck Rogers lawsuit. I've never read this far down, but in 2017, Williams advanced $250,000 to fund a trademark lawsuit between the Dill Family Trust and the Nolan Family Trust, who represented the estate of Philip Francis Nolan, the creator of Buck Rogers, over who owned the rights to the Buck Rogers character. In February 2019, the Dill Family Trust entered into a settlement agreement with the Nolan Family Trust, selling the trust's asset and assigning all their intellectual property rights to Buck Rogers to the Nolan Family Trust, U.S. District Court, blah blah blah. So anyway, like of course, because she was so lawsuit happy, it was ridiculous. And we now again we don't know if she's any relation to Cynthia Williams, but anyway. So what do I see happening in the hobby now? We've been talking about this. We ran a game earlier tonight, and the guy who plays the half orc fighter posted it in our channel somewhere. So let's pull this up. He shared this link. Okay, so Paizo announces system neutral open RPG license. For the last several weeks, rumors of Wizards of the Coast's new version of the open game license began circulating among publishers and social media gamers across the world. I have been asking what Paizo plans to do in light concerns regarding Wizards of the Coast rumor plans to deauthorize the existing OGL 1.0A. We've been awaiting further information, hoping that Wizards would realize that for more than 20 years, the OGL has been a mutually beneficial license which should not and cannot be revoked. That's essentially what it comes down to. It cannot legally be revoked, but what a lot of people fail to remember is that Wizards and Hasbro have a lot of money. Okay. So the question is not, is it legal to do so? The question is, how willing are Wizards and Hasbro willing to go to court to drag people to essentially, and here comes some rather crass language, but to essentially drag their balls off in court, um, to try to make it monetarily disadvantageous for people to fight this. That's where I see that going. So the question is not whether or not it's revocable. The question is how willing are Wizards and Hasbro to take people to court to kill them, to essentially crucify them over this. Now you have men out there like Chris Gonerman and Matt Finch, and they've been here, done that. Um, but they're older men at this point, and they each have their own business. Whether or not it's worth it to them to be dragged to court and try to fight this, and it would be unlikely that they'd win a war of attrition, despite how the original OGL came out, which was a good thing. But something people don't realize is that the issue is less about the OGL than it is about the SRD. That's why Chris Gonerman has been revising his stuff online, and why people for Basic Fantasy have been working around the clock to try to get this thing cleaned up, make sure that they take all the language out. And Chris still maintains through some posts in the forums that there's a chance this might fail. It still can. It's not bulletproof. they're going to try what they can, and hopefully they come out the other side all right. But anyway, continuing on with the article, while we continue to wait an answer from Wizards, we strongly feel that Paizo can no longer delay making our feelings about the importance of the OG open gaming a part of the public discussion, and that's true. They've actually been pretty silent on it since this happened. Because really, let's talk like what was Pathfinder response to the OSL or the GSL or something. GSL, I believe it was called. It was a response to that in 4E, right? So this is what, and I believe Wizards know that this is what's going on because they're wanting to digitalize D&D, and so they're going to try to essentially create another um, uh, GSL or yeah GSL to create another GSL and try to drag people's nuts off, to not fight it anymore because Paizo came to prominence with Pathfinder because of fourth edition in the GSL last time, and they don't want a repeat of that. So, uh, we believe that any interpretation that the OGL 1.0 or 1.0A were intended to be revocable uh, or able to be authorized is incorrect and with good reason. We were there. Paizo owner Lisa Stevens and Paizo president Jim Butler were leaders on the Dungeons and Dragons team at Wizards at the time. Brian Lewis, co-founder of Azora Law, the intellectual property law firm that Paizo uses, was the attorney at Wizards who came up with the legal framework for the OGL itself. Paizo has also worked very closely on OGL related issues with Ryan Dancy, the visionary who conceived the OGL in the first place. Paizo does not believe that the OGL 1.0A can be deauthorized ever. Again, that's not the issue. How willing are you to go to court over this? While we are prepared to argue that point in a court of law if need be, we don't want to have to do that. Well, you're going to want to have to do that. Because again, this is not the issue whether or not they think it's revocable. It's who do they think is going to be willing to take a beating in court. That's the issue that Paizo doesn't seem to be understanding. Because don't get me wrong, this is wrong for them to do, but they don't care. They obviously don't care. They have money to throw at this problem, trying to make it go away. That's the issue. A lot of these people are not realizing. And to be honest with you, now that this has happened, it's time to step away from the OGL and the SRD because this is just going to happen again in the future. This sets a precedent. And so it's foolish to maintain the SRD and the OGL at this point. And we know that many of our fellow publishers are not in a position to do so. Well, that's true. That's the issue. We have no interest whatsoever in Wizards' new OGL. Who is? Instead, we have a plan that we believe will be irrevocably and unquestionably keep alive the spirit of the open game license. As Paizo has evolved, the parts of the OGL that we ourselves value have changed. When we needed to quickly bring out Pathfinder First Edition to continue publishing our popular monthly adventures back in 2008, right? Because Paizo originally was a magazine publisher for Dungeons and Dragons. Using Wizards language was important and expeditious, but our non-RPG products, including our Pathfinder Tales novels, the Pathfinder Adventure card game, and others, we shifted our focus away from D&D tropes to lean harder into ideas from our own writers. By the time we went to work on Pathfinder 2nd Edition, Wizards of the Coast open game content was significantly less important to us, and so our designers and developers wrote the new edition without using Wizards copyright expressions of any game mechanics. While we still published it under the OGL, the reason was no longer to allow Paizo to use Wizards expressions, but to allow other companies to use our expressions, and that's understandable. That's really what the crux of this is, right? These third partiers, these people that I said this before. I feel very bad for third partiers that rely on this for a living. I really do. Personal opinion. Don't get me wrong. Trying to make money from a hobby is not a bad thing. And I want to make that clear. I'm a musician myself, and my parents very much pushed that. They very much encouraged that. And they knew I wanted to try to make it a career one day. But they knew realistically the chances of that happening very slow. Need to have a backup plan. And that's true because I've never once made money off of my music. I've never once made money off of any hobby I've had. So I've been a factory mechanic for a long time, have specific trade skills that I have. I might not use them a whole lot outside of the factory, but I do have them. There's something I can take with me. There's something to fall back on. And I believe a lot of people should have planned for something like this because the funny part is there's people out there believing, oh, I can't believe Wizards would do this. How? How? Wizards have been a scummy company for a very long time. Now, it just took them longer to get to this point. But for the past several years, they have proven themselves to be anti consumerist, anti gamer, anti everything. Like, they're only concerned about the audience and the pop culture popularity of Dungeons and Dragons, not necessarily the brand itself, not necessarily the game itself. That's why it's going digital. That's why they're pushing for subscriptions and this, that, and everything else. And what drives me nuts is you have people that are like, "Oh, how much of this is Hasbro? How much of this is Cynthia Williams?" Does it really matter? Cynthia Williams comes from Microsoft, which is a company notorious for microtransactions. You don't think she wouldn't bring that here? Of course she would. Absolutely, 110%. How could you not see that on the wall? But I digress. Anyways, we believe, as we always have, that open gaming makes games better. I agree with that. Improves profitability for all involved, and enriches the community of gamers who participate in this amazing hobby. Yeah, I'm with you on that. So we invite gamers from around the world to join us. We begin the next great chapter of open gaming with the release of a new, perpetual, and irrevocable open RPG creative license, ORC. Well, that's a cute name. And I would be in support of this with with the exception that I am skeptical. Why am I skeptical? Well, because the last time we're in this situation because somebody last time said that their open game license was irrevocable. How do we know that Paizo is going to keep their word? Now, in terms of scumminess, Paizo, the only thing I ever disagree with Paizo with is that they went woke quicker than Wizards of the Coast. They simply did. They went woker quicker. Um, so that's politics. However you feel about that, that's your hang up. That's your deal. Okay. My personal opinion, I don't like Paizo because they are like 10 times worse than Wizards in terms of the pandering to particular uh, non-gaming people who want to claim other people are istophobic about everything, including orcs. But like, you realize you could play black people in a fantasy game, right? You can play a black human. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, I don't get how whatever. I'm getting off on a tangent, but you can't be racist to her a fantasy race anyway. But anyways, that's my only problem. We were promised this was irrevocable the last time. I Now Paizo hasn't necessarily given me a reason to distrust them in terms of how lawsuit happy they are. I don't think they are, but I'm skeptical because the last big company just said that, and now they've tried to revoke it. So The new Open RPG creative license will be built system agnostic for independent game publishers under the legal guidance of Azora Law, an intellectual property law firm that represents Paizo and several other game publishers. Paizo will pay for this legal work. We invite game publishers worldwide to join us and support the system agnostic license that allows all games to provide their own unique open rules, reference documents that open up their individual game systems to the world. To join the effort and provide feedback on the drafts of this license, please sign up using this form. And it gives a link to the form. And if you are interested in that, the I will give you the web address of this in the comments. Let me copy. Okay, let me go to YouTube. YouTube. Okay. I hate Bing so much. I don't even know why this is a default browser. Of course you're not responding. Why would you respond? It's just for whatever reason, anytime I click on a link, that's just where it takes me. So give me just a second. Okay. So, if you happen to be a game publisher and you're watching this and this sounds like something you want, I will provide it to you. I will provide the link for you. Um, simply check. I'm going to try to go to live chat. And I will try my best to include it. I will try to include it. There we go. I will try to include it in the comments or the video description after this gets published. Okay. So, anyways, in addition to Paizo, Kobold Press, Chaosium, Green Ronin, Legendary Games, Rogue Genius Games, and a growing list of other publishers have agreed to participate in the Open RPG Creative License, and in the coming days, we hope and expect to add substantially to this group. Orc will not be owned by Paizo, nor will it be owned by any company who makes money publishing RPGs. Azora Law's ownership of the process and stewardship should provide a safe harbor against any company being bought, sold, or changing management in the future and attempting to rescind rights or nullify sections of the license. Now, okay. This would be the part I would agree with, because this is not going to be a Paizo thing. This is going to be associated with a law firm. So I could probably get on board with that. Ultimately, we plan to find a nonprofit with a history of open source values to own this license, such as Linux Foundation. Which, by the way, Linux Foundation happens to be, if I'm not mistaken, what Basic Fantasy RPG works through a lot. Just as an aside. Of course, Paizo plans to continue publishing Pathfinder and Starfinder, even as we move away from the open gaming license. Since months worth of products are still at the printer, you'll see the familiar OGL 1.0A in the back of our products for a while yet. While the Open RPG Creative License is being finalized, we'll be printing Pathfinder and Starfinder products without any license, and we'll add the finished license to those products when the new license is complete. We hope that you will continue to support Paizo and other game publishers in this difficult time for the entire hobby. You can do your part by supporting the many companies that have provided content under the OGL. Support Pathfinder and Starfinder by visiting your local game store. No, my local game store sucks. subscribing to Pathfinder Starfinder. Sorry, not going to do that. Or taking advantage of the discount code, which, if you're interested in it, Open Gaming. It's one word. Open, capitalized, gaming, capitalized. Uh, capital OPEN, capital GAMING. So, O and G are capitalized. During the checkout for 25% off your purchase of the Core Rulebook Pocket Edition, or Pathfinder Beginner Box. Support Kobold Press, no. Green Ronin, Legendary Games, not familiar with them, to be honest with you. Roll for Combat, again, not familiar, so no opinion. Rogue Genius Games, and other publishers working to preserve prosperous future for open gaming that is both perpetual and irrevocable. We'll be there at your side. You count on us not to go back on our word. Forever Paizo Incorporated. Now, good article. In my opinion. Um I'm I'm still skeptical, but if this is gonna be owned by a law firm for a while, I could probably get behind that. But I mean, this it, in my opinion, the like getting away from the OGL, going to something that is truly about open source, that is not going to fall through, is the best course of action. But uh, again, like I said before, the problem is not necessarily the OGL. The problem is mostly the SRD. A lot of people have put monster and spell descriptions in that are very close to the verbiage of fifth edition Dungeons and Dragons, or Dungeons and Dragons in general. So that's really where the problem lies. Now let's go to, okay. Let's check out on some news. So like I wanted to see where Chris Gonerman and company have landed. We'll go ahead and log in my particular account. Okay, I am in. So let's talk general discussion. Fist of Sorts, which is okay. So Solomoria, which is Chris Gonerman's handle, is the last person to have commented, I think. So page 29. This has obviously been very active. Okay. So, all right, I'll tell you what, we're going to do a full read through of the page, see where Chris Gonerman lies. I will try my best to be brief. So here's what Chris Gonerman originally posted um, on um, January the 7th. That was last Saturday at 10:51 a.m. It doesn't matter whether Hasbro releases their new license or not. It doesn't matter whether it stands up in court or not. Their attempt to invalidate the license we've always depended on and then to effectively steal what we've created demonstrates that they are an existential threat to our game. So what do? We excise the OGL. Now, you guys are pretty familiar with all this. So if you happen to be a contributor for Basic Fantasy RPG and you need he needs your permission to publish your things, you need to send him an email at solomoria@basicfantasy.org. Um, he gives you the template. Your name appears here. Uh, Hereby grant to Chris Gonerman my consent to change the license of any work I have done on any Basic Fantasy project document to the Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike 4.0 International License. This is the license that they are seeking to go with, which is, you know, it's not the fanciest looking thing in the world, but it is truly open source. So, um, everybody has everybody has been working really hard to scrub SRD stuff. Um, the suggestion is to create a stripped down SRD of our own. The answer is no, sorry, not needed. Um, the game is and always will be free as long as I can make it so. And that's what Mario said. Because the whole spirit of this is really what has gotten so many people on Chris Gonerman's side is the fact that this is an open. Like he wants to maintain that this game remains free. It's its whole point. It's the whole reason why it exists. Um, so, oh, I got a comment. Hey, I think that's a new. I think that might be. Aha, Slima Bob. Hello, you finally caught my stream. Hi, Slima Bob. It's been pretty cool to watch the thread explode with activity as people go through all the books. Yeah, have you seen any of the previews for the new entries? Uh, I believe they replaced Displacer Beast with Deceiver, which, in my opinion, the artwork is cooler. Um, the weird part is, in attempts to try to remain generic, they actually kind of added a little bit more identity to it. What's up?
How do you talk battery acid look like?
What?
How do you talk battery acid looks like?
Why?
Because I opened mom's blood pressure cup because she was really dizzy and numb, and I take her blood pressure. There was sticky substance inside.
It's probably it's probably battery acid.
I washed my hands really.
Well, the whole thing needs thrown away.
Okay.
It's not safe anymore.
Okay.
So.
What you doing?
I'm just streaming.
Oh, okay.
So.
Hi, YouTube. I'm going to bed.
Okay.
I gotta get up early. Gotta
right.
grocery store. Oh, okay.
Love you too. Just going to sleep with the kiddos tonight. So, anyways, let me. Can't wait for more previews. I have lots of really cool stuff. Yeah, I remember a big concern was the vampires because they couldn't figure out what was mechanically Gygaxian TSR era stuff and what was mythological folklore stuff. That was really where a lot of the where the confusion was. So okay, so people read. So this is posted by Jim 1804. By the way, my handle's Arcane Hunter 89. So, people read Perpetual, and the fact that everyone else was using it, Paizo wouldn't base their whole business on something that wasn't legit, right? Reinforces legitimacy. Although, from what I've read, Perpetual and Irrevocable don't mean the same thing in contracts. Most definitely not a lawyer of rules or laws, but there is likely an argument to be made that most reasonable people would interpret perpetual to mean perpetual, and 20 plus years of existence certainly reinforced that idea, and that's really where a lot of the idea of betrayal comes from. Is irrevocable and perpetual, while not technically meaning the same thing in contracts, like that's really where people get that sense of betrayal. So, let's see here. Okay, not that it seems we're seriously considering a different development platform, but for a light but powerful wiki, I recommend Doku Wiki. I've used it for many years to keep my own writing and documentation projects organized. MediaWiki was overkill for my use. A purported new version of the WotC license 2.0 is circulating online. If it's real, it looks like it keeps OGL 1.0 active for anything published underneath it. Again, like I understand what Jim's saying. We need to get away from it because this sets a precedent. This can happen in the future again. So Moving away from the OGL and the SRD is 100% the right move. But if this is the case, it likely means that current documents won't need to be taken down anytime soon, which is good news, at least for now. Exactly. So first, second, and third revision of Basic Fantasy, if this license is okay, then those can stay up. But we should still have something that's not associated with the OGL up. So, because this sets a precedent. I know I've said it 1,000 times already, but this sets a precedent and a very nasty one. So, continuing on to page 29. Shoot, I never did see Hawk's question, but in answer to your question, Hawk, I am the bottleneck. The production team can do a lot of the layout anymore. She is an expert, but I do covers, and I dare touch the creaky, cranky core documents, core rules document. I'm leaving it open on my screen from day to day because of how long it takes to stabilize right after opening it. Yeah, I'd say it's a pretty old file. um, so like, yeah, Solomoria is doing his part. It's not like he's sourced this to only the forum people. So, um, thanks for the news. Although, if they don't ensure it's non revocable, they'll basically leave it hanging like the sword of Damocles. There's no way to know. They won't try to deauthorize OGL 1.0A tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. So, this doesn't really make the situation better. Exactly. Like, the only thing, if best case scenario, 1.0A stays up and Basic Fantasy can keep third, second, and first revision up on the website for people to download. Best case scenario. But worst case scenario, we still need the game up that's not connected to the OGL at all. So that's what's going to have to happen. I've downloaded everything I could. So I've got everything that I believe I need. 100% true, but it means that all sorts of OGL 1.0 base docs are going to have to just disappear in the next couple days. Yeah, but the thing is, like that like people are already, like, they're already looking forward to when they get betrayed again, because like that's the only thing that makes me kind of think twice about Paizo's thing is that like they're referring to Orc and how this is going to be non-revocable, and I'm like, yeah, but the last time we were told it wasn't. They went back on their word, so how can we trust you? Like, because like it's not that I don't trust Paizo. I don't, but I certainly don't trust WotC, and I definitely 110% believe the day would come where Paizo goes back on their words on that. So, uh, they promise they won't own it. Yeah, but like, it's just too risky to trust a company like that right now. And here's the thing. Yeah, at this point they've revealed their hand, and it's pretty much impossible to trust WotC, even if they were to walk it back now and keep 1A intact. Exactly. So like, my whole thing is the thing that, oh lordy. So how do I want to put this? Um, like, because again, I don't trust Paizo, but because like, they might not do anything underhanded, but like, here's the thing, like, I'm not willing to shackle myself to them. um, Whoever comes out victorious on this other side against WotC, I'm for. The aggravating thing is people are saying that, oh, WotC's not behind this, is Hasbro. Well, here's the thing though. Um, WotC has been really scummy and anti-consumerist for the last little while. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a pretty diehard capitalist, right? So, like, if it's your IP, I believe you have every right to make profit off of it. But I oppose bad business decisions, and this is the worst blunder in a long list of blunders WotC has ever done. Like, okay, yeah, Radiant Citadel sucked. Yeah, Curse of Strahd was terrible. Um, like, and it was all politically based and this, that, and everything else. This is different. This is something that actually, like, you're putting other games at risk because you don't like competition. You're wanting to monopolize the market. Um, it's not fair because you have all this money. Um, it's a terrible business decision. It's a bad look on your company. WotC, it has a history of being anti-consumerist, and like, because think about it, they pander to people who are non-gamers. They pander to the crowd who wanted to istophobic everybody, and they didn't play games. They had no intention on playing games. They liked the identity of being connected to to the culture. That's why you see so many of these cringy little weird cartoon characters up on a Google search anytime you look up Dragonborn or Tiefling or whatever. Um, and you know, they had no interest in playing a game. They just liked the idea of creating an OC and being part of a culture, even though they didn't. They never had an intention on playing and this, that, and everything else. So and they were the people that Wizards pandered to. So like, and they have a history of doing that. So it's not surprising. It's what they've always done. So, um, as much, I mean, uh, like it was something that came up in the group tonight when we after we were done playing. Like, what is the possibility of us living and gaming in a post D&D world? Because that's the thing. In the past, TSR went under, and it had to be bought out by Wizards, and that's the only way that D&D stayed afloat. Um, Hasbro can be too big to fail. They have a lot of money; they can afford it. Um, Wizards, not so much. Wizards does not have the kind of money that Hasbro has. Wizards can 110% go under. It's not too big to fail. And if nothing else, D&D can also fail. Once they see that it's not making money, they can sell it off for the better or for the worst. Time will tell. Hopefully for the better, but I mean, because like let's be honest, like the whole reason I don't like 5e is because it's not D&D. It's WotC high fantasy game. That's it. It doesn't. There's nothing Gygaxian about it. There's nothing like there's no hint of Blackmore. There's no hint of Mystara. There's no hint of the Forgotten Realms. There's no hint of any of that or Kryn or any of that. And like, oh well, those are campaign settings. That's no, they're caricatures of what Kryn and Mystara and Blackmore and all that was. That they're they're these weird neutered, not like they've had their identity stripped away from them, and like because they were these big lethal worlds full of adventure and peril, and now that they're just places for people to live out their weird fetishes, and I'm not cool with that. So, and yes, I'm going to kink shame, so I don't care. Your crap should stay in the bedroom. All right, Paizo. Okay, so Jim Hamara posts. Don't know if anybody's seen this, and he links to the article I just read. Paizo and a handful of other companies are designing a new system-neutral, open, perpetual, and irrevocable RPG license. I know BFRPG is using CC, but this also looks promising in my opinion, and RPG specific. Links to the Gizmodo article. Just opinion here from having been through these headaches in the publishing industry over the decades. IP licensing, and this is posted by our RPG research, by the way. IP licensing is so ugly and messy. This is worsened each time a new license is enacted. It needs to undergo tests over time. Any new license runs the risk of having an unforeseen flaw. We've seen this a lot in open source tech community as well. The one big advantage the GPL and CC license have is that they have undergone many court trials and had their tires kicked a lot. So while no license is foolproof, they are a more predictable known quantity. Is of course up to, and that's primarily why I'm skeptical about the orc thing. It is of course up to the creators. I'm very much not a lawyer, but as someone in several organizations I've run as CEO and CTO who survived going through IP battles with huge law firms representing companies in IP battles such as Tolkien Middle Earth Enterprises, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and others, the headache of being a guinea pig for a new license is rarely worth it. If the new RPG license stands the test of time, perhaps then it will be worth considering taking the chance. I 110% agree with that. Paizo doesn't own the new orc, to my understanding. Well, that's what they that's what they say. Like they don't currently own it, so like I don't know. Call me skeptical. If it stays in the hands of a law firm, great. But this is a new thing, and as RPG Research said, this is like the share alike thing is not foolproof, but it's something, and it's been tested. Like it stood up a test of time, so it's like the true open source thing. Paizo doesn't own the new org, to my understanding. They consulted with a law firm for its development, and that law firm is in charge of it. It's certainly a promising alternative to the OGL as long as they're able to avoid those language pitfalls you mentioned, which I'm confident they will if it's designed and overseen by experienced lawyers. And then Jim Hamara replies to RPG Research. I mean, sure, no one can say how this would go, but they're definitely going the right way about it with plenty of input and feedback. What I like the most is that it's an RPG specific license. Take of that what you will. Now, I do kind of agree with that. Like having something that's specifically targeting games in mind, right? So maybe it's the old curmudgeon.com curmudgeonly grognard in me, but I have seen a lot of inventors, artists, and companies lose their IP even after paying millions to experienced lawyers. That's true. There's no guarantee that this law firm is on the up and up. I've never heard of Azor's Law. I doubt you have either. And so he responds to the whole uh the whole RPG specific thing, and he said, "Yeah, here, yes, indeed. Hope it impacts some of the other companies that have very restrictive licensing as well. As a huge open source advocate, always excited to see these topics come back to the forebrain of everyone for a bit." hmm So currently, that's where that's where we are. As far as Basic Fantasy. Now, I'm going to see if anything's changed on Iron Falcon because, to be honest with you, that's the one I'm most worried about. I believe Basic Fantasy would be fine. Um, Chris Gonerman didn't have good news about Iron Falcon. So, so here's what brought this on. I was downloading all the stuff on Iron Falcon. I noticed that the Monster Handbook and 75 was not available in PDF. I got on Facebook and I asked him if those were available anywhere. He was originally planning on cleaning them up before he released them, but he released them after I asked him. So I don't want to take credit because I didn't release them. I just asked him to. So uh, got a dip. It's pretty late for me. Peace. Yeah, it's about 4, 5 in the morning for me. Yeah, 4 in the morning. So I'll see you. I'll have this up. So hopefully you catch up later on it. Hopefully it'll process by then. So we're going to talk about Iron Falcon for a bit. So Solo Moria posts as of right now, all Iron Falcon products are available as free PDFs on the main site, which is ironfalconrpg.com. Um, so they're available as free PDFs on the main site along with the ODT source documents never shared before for everything except 75. I still have hopes. This is what makes me rally behind Chris a lot. They want to take them away from me. I'm giving them to all of you first. And of course, T Man says, "Wow, thank you. I'm experiencing some loss of having to probably take all my stuff down on Friday over the weekend, but thank you for your generosity. Thanks, so that's a great gesture." Here we go. Here's the more heartbreaking part. Are you planning on CC licensing Iron Falcon as well? I'm pretty sure it's as doable as BFRPG was. Solomorio replies, less actually. The whole point of Iron Falcon is that it's a very close clone of the original game. The amount of stuff we have to change is not a big deal for basic fantasy, but sadly too much flavor is in there. They're referring to IF. Doesn't mean I won't try, but I expect it to be more heartbreaking. Um, Lago, I haven't read Iron Falcon yet. My cash flow and Amazon's cruel pricing for POD in Australia prevented it before now, but there may be less required changes than you think. The OGL didn't give any protection for using OD&D stuff, and the things we've talked about that you did in IF all sound like they passed muster. So maybe it won't be as bad as you fear. Now I'll read it to see if I'm full of hot air. Um, my response. Yeah, I was super stoked to see it made available over Facebook. Sadly, I felt like Iron Falcon got overlooked in all of this craziness, and I intend to eventually run it on a day where my group wants to do something different. Never say never, but if worse comes to worse, I have my files. Any newbies coming afterwards can always come to guys like me for it. And if that doesn't happen, when my daughters are old enough to play, I can whip these bad boys out. After all, the games don't have to survive based on strangers on the internet. Friends and family make great tables. I said I'm sounding doomy and gloomy. Pay me no mind. Uh, Chris said, run Iron Falcon 75 for them cold. I've never not had a blast doing that. Yeah, that sounds cool. You know, pretty much everybody's saying thank you. There's a second page that I haven't read, so I wonder what's on this. So far, I'm seeing many differences from the source game, things you haven't carried over from Greyhawk specifically. And what is there is pretty crunchy and therefore unprotectable. Still plenty to be done, certainly more work than BF, but I don't see anything crushingly hard so far. Only looked at the rule books so far and not done any line by line comparisons on, but the things I have checked don't seem too bad. Thank you for this um, grand gesture to make all these files available while it's still possible. I doubt I'll have the opportunity to run Iron Falcon, but I decided to order a hardcover of the core rules, the monster book, and IF 75. Hopefully, uh, there is some sort of revenue going in your direction. Thanks again. And the Iron Falcon books do pay Chris because they're pretty much his project, his thing, and they are unique in a lot of ways. So it's like one of the few things he does make a little bit of a profit on. So BFRPG is different. They're printing at cost. He does make a small profit because of the way Amazon is set up, you know. But it's only like 25 to 50 cents. But thank you for doing this. It's a shame you're having to deal with the fallout of this OGL drama. Personally, I think the protections that are in place are enough to prevent anything particularly nasty from happening, but it's good to be cautious. I picked up the I've been running BFRPG almost exclusively for over a decade now, and your hard work and that of the other contributors around these parts has not gone unnoticed. And that's true. Um, just as a reminder, as of right now, they still plan on pulling everything BFRPG related down um, starting um, starting on Saturday. So if you don't have that stuff now, I do implore you to get it. Personal opinion, I think the hobby's going to be okay. Um, I do think that there's going to be enough of a kickback to because what's the whole point, right? You know, we don't want like you have guys like me who don't want to play the new games. You have guys that do play the new games that want to keep making things for the new games. Like this hobby has always subsisted off of third party contributions. Again, I bring up the Thief class because the Thief class was not Gary's creation. It was this fanzine where it was first published. So it's always subsisted on that's how you had campaigns. That's how you had these settings, and it's really crushing to see people wanting to take that away. You know what I mean? It's really disheartening. But in my opinion, it I think we're going to come up okay on the other side. I see no reason why we should panic. Um, because again, I think we're going to be okay. I believe we're going to be perfectly fine. I know we keep saying we don't we don't need um the OGL at our tables because like we're on thing we could always take, blah blah blah, but in the day, it does affect what is available for our hobby. I believe no matter what, you're going to have people that are going to release materials no matter what. No matter what people, how hard somebody like Wizards might try to put them down. I'm starting to ramble on now. I believe I'm I believe I'm pretty much done. Um, because like I'm just talking about nothing now. So as always, guys, take care. God bless. See you on the other side. We're gonna make it. The hobby's gonna be okay. It's gonna be fine. I know it sucks right now, but trust me, it's not the end of the world. Sky's not falling. Wait, this is a hobby, okay? You have people that want to pretend this is a way of life. It's not a lifestyle. It's just a hobby. But anyways, take care. God bless, guys. See you on the other side. As I said.